I'm Reverend Michelle Scott-Huffman. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the minister here at First Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm thrilled to be with you in this sacred, even if virtual space this morning. On November 9th, 2016, perhaps a day some of you all remember, Valerie Carr, author, civil rights activist, and adherent of the Sikh religious tradition, shared a powerful word entitled A Sikh Prayer for America. I begin today by sharing her words. Vaguru ji ka khalsa, Vaguru ji ki fateh. In our tears and agony, we hold our children close and confront the truth. The future is dark. But my faith dares me to ask, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country still waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor? What if all the mothers who came before us, who survived genocide and occupation, slavery and Jim Crow, racism and xenophobia and Islamophobia, political oppression and sexual assault are standing behind us now, whispering in our ear, you are brave? What if this is our great contraction before we birth a new future? Remember the wisdom of the midwife. Breathe, she says, then push. Now it is time to breathe, but soon it will be time to push. Soon it will be time to fight for those we love. Muslim father, Sikh son, trans daughter, indigenous brother, immigrant sister, white worker, the poor and forgotten, and the ones who cast their vote out of resentment and fear. Let us make an oath to fight for the soul of America, the land that never has been yet and must be, as Langston Hughes wrote, with revolutionary love and relentless optimism. And so I pray this Sikh prayer. Nanak Nam Chardi Kala, Tere Bane Sarbat Dabala. In the name of divine love within us and around us, we find everlasting optimism. May there be grace for all of humanity. Vaguru ji ka khalsa, Vaguru ji ki fateh. For many people, particularly those in marginalized communities, November 9th, 2016 felt like a very dark day. There was a deep sense that nobody was quite sure where we were headed, but that it wasn't going to be good for a lot of people. We are living in some dark days right now. And when I say they are dark, I'm not using that term to mean bad necessarily, although it's safe to say that we are living in the midst of much that is bad, from a global pandemic that is especially out of control in this country, not unrelated to a complete breakdown of checks and balances and rise in abusive authoritarian government practices, and a national discourse on racism and white supremacy that continues to expose shameless use of explicitly racist words, actions, and systems, and perhaps the height of dog whistle politics. In this darkness, though, there is also good. A couple of weeks ago, I told you that I believe we are in a threshold moment, the likes of which we haven't seen before in our lifetimes. Even in the last few weeks, Confederate monuments continue to come down. Mississippi has retired their long contested state flag. College athletes are making demands on their universities and their states to eliminate racist and culturally insensitive mascots, facility names, and more. A July 15th New York Times article entitled What Black Lives Matter Has Revealed About Small-Town America offered the subtitle, A Multiracial Future Has Appeared Along with Unprecedented Conversations About Race. And a look at the New York Times bestseller list would indicate that people are consuming books on anti-racism at an impressive rate. These are dark times indeed. But Valerie Carr's words in her prayer from 2016 feel even more poignant now. What if this darkness is not the darkness of a tomb, but the darkness of a womb? What if America is not only a country ready to be reborn, but we are the doulas and the midwives and the birthing partners who help make it so? What if we navigate this current darkness with such focus and intention that future generations don't have to keep fighting the same fight? What if we allow this darkness to hold us, to teach us, and to send us, better equipped into a future that we have created, where justice, dignity, and equity reign? Episcopal priest Barbara Brown Taylor writes in her book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, "I have learned things in the dark that I could never have learned in the light, things that have saved my life over and over again, so that there is really only one logical conclusion. I need darkness as much as I need light." The truth is, at least in my life, the transformation rarely comes when we're cruising along and everything is just all right. And so if a lack of all rightness is any indication that we might be open to some change and ready to make it, this must be our time, our threshold moment. And it is calling us to transformation, both personal and collective. I wonder if we can even imagine the beauty on the other side of the doorway that awaits our arrival. Take a moment to imagine it for yourself. I have so appreciated all the images of doorways on slides and social media postings as we think together about the theme of thresholds this month. I was only briefly distracted by articles about the phenomenon that is known as the doorway effect. Perhaps you're familiar with it. It's the thing that happens when you're in one room and you get up to go do something in another room, but once you enter the other room, you can't remember why you're there. You'll be happy to know two things. One, it's not just you. The rest of us have the same problem. And two, there have been studies recently that have shown that changing rooms and walking through doorways indeed makes us forget things. And in case you're discouraged right now, because you don't even have to get up and go somewhere to forget what you're doing, the studies have also shown that the same forgetting occurred with subjects who were moving through doorways in a virtual space as well. So that thing that happens when I swipe my computer screen from my email to my calendar to enter a meeting, and when I get to my calendar, I have no idea why I'm there. That's the doorway effect. I share that little rabbit trail with you to say, only half jokingly, that if we can remember why we're standing in the doorway at all, there is great possibility in our engagement in this moment. And I'm only half joking because we know that there are cultural forces that will do everything in their power to make us use our selective memories to maintain the status quo. The importance of this moment in our history begs us to remember, to relearn, and to keep moving forward one step at a time toward the healing of our individual lives, our society, and our planet. And so that we don't get tripped up when we come up against powerful opposing forces, we must engage this moment with a full awareness of the difficulties it will bring. Threshold moments tend to bring great tension, conflict, and both inner and outer wrestling. Overwhelmed by the tension, we often find ourselves stuck in the doorway, peering ahead into an unknown future and holding on to the assurance of past experience, afraid to take a step. Earlier this week, I was in a meeting and struck by a conversation among ministers who needed to communicate safety precautions for gathering their congregations back in their buildings, but were concerned about negative feedback based on folks being inconvenienced or uncomfortable. And all I could think of is that so many of us have operated in our privilege for so long, able to remain fairly insulated from the turmoil around us, that we have actually come to expect and really insist upon our own comfort. Well, you're in luck. because I was trained in ministry by professors who instilled in me that one of the most important jobs of the minister is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. We are in the midst of a global pandemic that has killed nearly 140,000 Americans. Our healthcare systems are in danger of being overwhelmed in many places any day. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs and the healthcare coverage that was tied to them. The global economy has been decimated, and along with it, entire sectors of education, culture, entertainment, and more. On top of that, LGBTQ teens are still engaging in self-harm at alarming rates. Transgender people, especially those of color, continue to be murdered with impunity. Indigenous people continue to struggle with shrinking resources while fighting for the fulfillment of promises made and broken over and over again, and the enslavement of Black and brown people, as well as poor white people, is alive and well under 100 different names. I'm sorry if you found that list to be a bit overwhelming, because I certainly did. But I say all of that as a preface to a really important question. Who are we to expect comfort and convenience when this is the shape of our world? I want to suggest that if we are to find transformation on the other side of this particular threshold, that we are going to have to get uncomfortable and probably change our relationship with tension from one of avoidance to one of appreciation. Now that may seem far-fetched. Who appreciates tension? I hope that we will, once we think about it as a force for transformation in our lives and in our world. So I offer for your consideration today 3 ways to engage with tension that I think may eventually bring an appreciation. They are tension as a creative force, tension as a cleansing force, and tension as a cohesive force. Tension as a creative force. A blogger named Rebecca on a personal transformation blog says it well when she writes, "I have always assumed that the point of internal conflict is to integrate the conflicting parts and resolve the conflict, but now I believe it is to dance the dance between the poles of our own tension, without expectation of integration or resolution, to dance where it leads us because the dance is the point. It is the tension that forges our life, our work, our path. It takes that amount of force to create." She notes that in a science experiment, there's often a force required for a substance to change form: pressure, heat, agitation. The force creates tension, and the tension transforms. What if we were to embrace the conflict, both internal and external, that we experience in difficult times, and lean into it to see what it has to teach us? Tension as a cleansing force. Some of us are carrying old teachings, biases, and a good deal of emotional baggage that keeps us from engaging fully in the transformative moment at hand. If we allow ourselves to experience the tension of this moment as a catalyst to ask ourselves honestly, what thoughts, beliefs, and patterns of behavior are no longer serving me, the people around me, my community? Maybe we can clean out some closets. On a grand scale, there has not been a time in recent history when the possibilities for change in so many of our systems was so great. They're almost all broken right now. We have the ability to choose which parts and pieces we use to put them back together. If we faithfully and carefully enter this moment with a willingness to learn and grow, we can do some much needed cleansing before we step boldly into a better future. May we cross this threshold with a deep awareness of just what we are carrying with us to the other side. And finally, tension as a cohesive force. There's something to be said for having gone through hell with someone. The bonds formed between people, sometimes with nothing else in common, when they have fought together for justice, for dignity, for equity, those bonds are powerful. Bradley Bergeron writes, "It might seem counterintuitive, but I am encouraging you to initiate conflict. Be an instigator, but be a strategic instigator. One effective unifying force you may call on is to have a common adversary. A challenging scene or a complex problem, for example, can be all you need to ignite a shared purpose." I think a side note here is important. Some of us are already instigators, not always for a good cause. But this is a moment where we can put those superpowers to work for good. There is no shortage of adversarial actions, circumstances, and policies that are in direct conflict with each of our UU principles, beginning with the denial of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, all the way through to a lack of respect for and even violence against the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. Just this week, in one 24-hour period, we lost two giants in the civil rights world: the Reverend C.T. Vivian and the Honorable John Lewis. An opinion piece in the Washington Post closed with this: "Sometimes history tries to send us a message. And this unsettling, turbulent period of ours seems to invite an intervention. Maybe history is saying this: two of our best, two giants, two heroes, two voices, two glories of peaceful persuasion, of victory without violence, have left the stage arm in arm, fists raised in triumph. Take their message to heart. Ours is not the first discouraging moment." This threshold moment is calling us to transformation. Let us not stand here stuck in the doorway. Let's do the hard work of allowing ourselves and thus our world to be changed. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.